McCoy, and I'm the chair of our governance committee. Welcome to our monthly meeting. I'd like to now call today's meeting to order. Mr. Hill, can you call roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Audrey Martin McCoy,
Present?
Miss Jill Hammergren,
Present.
Miss D. Ray.
Present.
Great, thank you. We've had an opportunity to review the agenda. With that agenda, can I get a motion to have it approved, please?
This is Jill. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes, Dr. McCoy,
Aye.
Miss Hammergren,
Aye.
Miss Ray.
Aye.
Thank you. You have received a copy of our governance committee meeting minutes from July 21st of 2022. Are there any additions or deletions? Hearing none, may I get a motion to approve the governance committee meeting minutes from July 21st, 2022?
This is Dee, so moved.
And this is Jill, second.
Thank you.
Dr. McCoy,
Aye.
Miss Hammergren,
Aye.
Miss Ray.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a few items on our agenda this evening, starting out with two information items, and one includes the operations report given by Mr. Mullins. Mr. Mullins, can we have your presentation, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, committee members. In this operations report, I went back to providing the student data, and you can see as of yesterday, I wanted to give this committee the enrollment numbers based on base, which was 2,716 students. And in Power School, we had 2,713. So there's a difference of 3, but it may be that there was one withdrawal, three withdrawals out of Power School that has not reflected on base yet. But you can see we're very close to the 2,705 that we spoke about a few weeks ago. And then in addition to that, you can see the grade band enrollments, 717 at the elementary school, the middle school 737, and the high school 1,262 students, and the students in each grade level. There's 707 students currently on the wait list. That was as of last Friday, so that was 6 days ago. I reached out to Phillips a couple of hours ago, and in 6 days, that 707 has increased to 795 students.
Wow.
So in a 6-day period, we added 88 students. So we're averaging 12 to 15 students every day. To just kind of give you some context, at that rate, within a week or so, we'll be over 1,000 on our wait list. And as we continue to monitor the on-base and Power School enrollment, obviously, if we drop below the 2592, we will start pulling kids from the wait list to ensure that we're at 2592. And you can see the students by grade band and by grade level. Also included our withdrawal data. The 170 students was from July 1 through the end of July, and that 170 represented a good number of those were just, as you can see, they chose to go back to brick and mortar or be homeschooled, and then a lot didn't give a reason as to why they wanted to leave cyber. And then since school started not quite 2 weeks ago, we've only really had 2 withdrawals in on base, but we know we're monitoring membership and student attendance, and we'll keep an eye on that. And then the latter part of the report is just your normal demographics data. And just to remind this committee, we're working with our auditors. They were in the office on August the 8th. And so in the next few months, we'll present the audit report to the board. And again, we're monitoring enrollment to make sure we're compliant and also ready if we need to pull people, students from the wait list. And as we met with the finance committee last night, we're been working on our 22-23 budget, and that will be presented at next Thursday's board meeting. So that's Dr. Martin McCoy. That's what I have, and see if the committee has any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hammergren.
Yes, can you remind me, Mr. Mullins, when our PMR1 evaluation is or when it's due?
Yes, ma'am. It's gonna be in mid-September.
Mid-September, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Mullins, I did have a question, but I will defer that to hear from Ms. Ray first.
Oh, excuse me, thank you.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
You're good. Just more a thought,
Mhm.
and we may cover this in the budget, but I was thinking about this reduction in our ability to bring on new students and all of the things that have been going. Is there any plan to reduce the budget for advertising since our wait list is as it is, and we may be advertising to bring on new students that we don't right now have the ability to continue to process through our wait list?
Yes, ma'am. So in the actual budget that'll be presented next Thursday, the amount that's been budgeted only reflects APCO, and part of that is marketing and advertising. But then APCO's doing a number of other things as well. But that line item has been reduced. Yes, ma'am.
So if I may also respond, Ms. Ray, it's an interesting strategic/political question as well. We go to the state board and to the legislature and show that we have 800, 900 kids who want to enroll in our school. Wow, it definitely signifies that there is a demand. And I would love to be able to show that wait list by district, by region, and frankly talk to certain legislators and let them know that, wow, you have this number of constituents who are interested in enrolling in your program. So one of the things that I've talked to APCO about is changing the verbiage in their marketing from time to enroll to, hey, this is something you might want to also know about. Just in terms of just keeping our name out there, because who knows what the legislature will do next school year or next semester. And I think I've also talked to you about trying to influence the state board to maybe amend the resolution. So we find ourselves so often hurrying to wait and then waiting and then hurrying, and you just never know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think my question is somewhat addressed in the response given to Ms. Ray. I was wondering, Mr. Mullins, at any point, while you were speaking, do we ever stop the waiting list when it gets to a certain number? Or do we just keep it extending, allowing folks to be added?
We continue to allow people to be added to the wait list, and part of that is because we know typically in December we're going to have to replace our graduates. Plus, at the end of a semester, we often have kids that go back to brick and mortar, or that's a number. It's also a time period where our wait list grows as students end a semester at a brick and mortar, and they know we're starting second semester with a new bunch of courses and classes. So we keep the wait list running, and then we reach out in April and May to verify that those that have been on the wait list at the beginning of the school year, if they're still interested, and then we start purging, archiving those that are no longer interested. But it is a running list.
And if I may add, Dr. McCoy.
Please do.
Okay. You also take from the wait list by grade band. Is that correct too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then one additional question that I had from our previous discussions in all of this in regards to enrollment numbers. Have we heard anything from CSAB in regards to to the change? I know that we talked some about the charter school office and we talked about the state board, but I don't recall hearing specifically what CSAP's position was, the Charter School Advisory Committee's board's position was on this.
So we have heard specifically from the State Board of Education, and the Charter School Advisory Board is an advisory board to the State Board of Education.
Mhm.
My assumption is that what we will hear from the Charter School Advisory Board is a request for information regarding whether we want to enroll more than 2592. And we'll need to present information to the Office of Charter Schools, which would then present that information to the Charter School Advisory Board, which would then present that information to the state board. So a few years ago, several years ago, there was frankly a discussion among Charter School Advisory Board members about a specific topic that skips my mind at the moment, but the state board asserted that, well, we are the entity that makes the decision and we can decide when and whether we ask the Charter School Advisory Board for its input. Subsequent to that, I believe the legislature went in and said, well, the Charter School Advisory Board has certain responsibilities. So there was a back and forth. So on this specific issue, the communication literally was from the Office of Charter Schools and then the State Board of Education. I have not heard anything offline or online from members of the Charter School Advisory Board. But I'm
Okay.
sure we will
Okay.
at some point.
Sounds good. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mullins and the operations report? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Moving on our agenda, our next item is on the 2022 through 2025 strategic plan, and Dr. Posner has some information to share with us. Dr. Posner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Hill, board members. I'm really excited to present the plan now in its draft form, but complete. As promised, August is the month that we are finalizing it and bringing it to the full board for approval and adoption. So what I'd like to do tonight is referring to the two attachments on the agenda, looking first at the plan document, which is a 17-page document. It should look very familiar in its components. We've been reviewing each major chunk and milestone as we've been progressing over the past 8 months to complete this. So the document opens with a one-page summary of the plan, including our new vision, mission, core values, and goals. It then goes on to detail the background and context behind this plan that really shaped our strategy. We know, our history, our performance, our growth metrics, the sense of urgency around really pivoting to new strategy to better serve students and improve outcomes. So all of that is detailed here with the data to support it. I would love especially to call your attention to page 5. As you'll recall, we ran a pilot this past year of using Canvas to deliver our Math 1 and Math 3 courses. And in analyzing the data from that pilot, we found great success from this new model. In fact, our Math 3 EOC proficiency rates nearly doubled year over year. The prior year, having taught the course asynchronously through our partnering curriculum provider versus this past year, teaching it using our own teachers, our own curriculum, and our new Canvas learning management system. So that's a really significant boost in outcomes that makes the very strong case for why we are scaling this up for the coming or the current school year that has just launched. The document goes on again to outline where we are with our school improvement plan metrics, and then the planning process and framework that we utilize in partnership with Cognia and Cognia's tool for planning, and the consultant, Julie Wright, who was very helpful in co-facilitating some workshops with me. We conducted a very extensive listening tour. That stakeholder engagement is summarized again here. Really good input from the community went into this planning process and was analyzed through this SWOT analysis and other tools we used. Our planning timeline is summarized on page 9. And then I closed this section talking about the 4 disciplines of execution, which Mr. Hill has had us adopt as our framework for execution and accountability, and which has really helped us bring focus to our organization and these efforts. So the 4DX model is summarized there. And the remaining pages of this document then dive into the 3 high-level strategic goals, or wildly important goals, as they're called in 4DX language. And those details include, for each goal, objective, critical initiatives, and key metrics. And again, in the 4DX world, we talk about metrics in terms of both leading and lagging indicators. So what are the measures we can look at along the way and act on accordingly to make course adjustments along our journey versus what are the metrics and targets we're setting, which can only be measured at the end of our journey, at the end of 1 or 2 or 3 years, as we assess the health and progress of this plan. So again, those 3 strategic goals are student engagement, personalized learning, and supportive environment for all, for students, for staff, and for our families. So that summarizes the plan document. I'm happy to answer any questions on that document before I pivot to the dashboard mockup.
Are there any questions for Dr. Posner at this time? Okay.
Awesome. So then pivoting to that other attachment called the strategic plan dashboard, you'll see this is a 1-page set of graphics. They are gauges with needles. This is a high-level view of our proposed leading and lagging indicators per strategic goal. These are not actual numbers yet, but this is to give you a sense of what we're looking at as those key indicators. So under student engagement, our big bet is that by improving engagement or students actually attending, especially in our live synchronous sessions taught by our highly qualified teachers, that connection between attendance and proficiency will become apparent. And so we've linked those together under student engagement, proficiency being measured by those EOG and EOC end of grade, end of course pass rates. Could there be exceptions? Of course. You could have a student who attends every day and then still struggles, and vice versa. But we know from research and best practices that there's a good correlation between these measures. Under personalized learning, we want to look at progress. So using our iReady assessment tool for progress monitoring, looking at grade level proficiency, and this will be assessed 3 times a year. We hope that improvements there and on grade level performance moves the needle on growth. And for that, we're using the district EVAS index score, which comes out at the end of the year. So that would be the lagging indicator of progress along the way. And under supportive environment, and again, this is for all, we'd like to use survey data from our perception survey as a means of looking at satisfaction levels for family, students, and staff, and correlate that with the lagging indicator of retention. Now, here we use the word retention to mean a student coming back, families returning to us, re-enrolling the next year. And on the employee side, that's employee retention. So this would be a composite metric representing both student and employee retention, staying with us as loyal customers, if you will. And this kind of high-level dashboard is something I've helped to design and execute in many other organizations. And this is the snapshot, the at-a-glance view for you as board members, for community members, and for us internally. Of course, there are many more metrics than this that we would track. We would disaggregate the data by subgroups, by grade bands, by courses, and all the way down to the individual. But all of that rolls up to this view so that you can help track along with us for accountability purposes as our plan progresses over the next 3 years. I'm happy to answer questions about this dashboard mockup. Ms. Hammergren.
Sure. So with those other performance metrics that you're talking about, how will you show those, if there's something specific that needs to be highlighted or that we can point to our stakeholders to say, hey, look, we've done this in certain areas. How can that be used in this plan?
Absolutely. So, I envision a much more comprehensive report being provided to this board, at least on a quarterly basis. That's the cadence that I'm accustomed to. And that would contain drill downs of these high level metrics. And the good news is we're getting ready to onboard our new director of data and accountability, who will report to me. I'm really excited. He comes to us with great data background, great school administration background. He's been a North Carolina school leader for many years. And so I'll be working with him to flesh out additional dashboards and views and reports that will give you those deep dive insights, beyond this one-page snapshot.
And then I'm sure that, and I see Ms. Bryant is there with us, that we can actually use some of that in sort of marketing and promotions and things like that on the website and with APCO and other areas that we might need that. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Dr.
Great
Posner,
question.
I had another question, couple of questions actually. Starting out with the dashboard, will we have access to this information or this type of dashboard for each monthly board meeting? I know that you mentioned that you're accustomed to having, I guess, more of the extended reports on a quarterly basis, but what did you have in mind in terms of showing us the snapshots?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of that will depend on the frequency at which this data is refreshed. So attendance data, that's pretty frequent, but end of grade and end of course exams, that's once a year. And that's normal, right? Because we should see movement on the leading indicators, that top row of gauges, much more frequent than the lagging. That's why they're called lagging. So while we can't give you new lagging indicators until end of year or start of next year, we certainly can and should be monitoring those leading indicators as they're updated, as we can get those refreshed to make sure that we're trending in the right direction.
And then I'm sure you have course corrections if we see that they're trending in the wrong direction, right? On those short-term things or quick response areas.
Oh, absolutely. In the spirit of continuous improvement and being agile, we need to be actively monitoring, especially when there's so many changes that we're putting in place right now. It's important that we assess and tweak and refine all of these strategies as we go.
Another question I had for you, Dr. Posner, deals with as the board is coming together to formulate its agenda for its retreat, its planning agenda, I think several months back we may have talked about using information from the strategic plan to kind of help us. But then I think we also had some discussion about how the board discussions might be able to help staff as we move forward in implementing this new strategic plan. So I guess I'm asking you, as well as other members of the staff, what can the board do? What would be, I guess, the most, what would you like to see the board do in terms of trying to, in reviewing this plan and in working through this plan, what kind of feedback or how would you like to see us help operationalize this plan?
Great question. So there is one outstanding piece here that's not done. You might notice, well, two. We still need to populate all of the current baseline numbers into these gauges. We're waiting on some data to come in the next week or two. But then we also need to set the targets. And those are the little black arrows or little black triangles that you'll see that are somewhere to the right of the needle. Oftentimes boards help to set targets, what you would like to see us strive towards as reasonable, attainable, but enough of a stretch to push us. So that's an area that we could use guidance in finalizing that last little piece of the puzzle here. What should the targets look like for each of these 6 metrics? And then beyond that, we need to operationalize the plan, as you said, across grade bands, across departments, and carry that vision forward.
So is there a plan in place for that already? Or is that something that you all are continuing to work on?
We're continuing to work on that, and Mr. Hill has had us adopt a project plan tool, which I think will be very helpful in now having the grade bands, the departments take accountability for what goals they have, which align to our strategic goals, and to track, monitor, and report on those plans in our weekly or monthly leadership meetings.
Sounds good.
Great.
Are there any? Yes, Ms. Ray?
Let me put my hand down. There we go. A question about the lag indicators. Are there any shorter term lag indicators that could be used, especially in this first year when there are so many changes happening? Or will it be kind of a wait for the whole first year for any lag indicators at all?
Yeah, good question. So by definition, any shorter metrics will be leading because those are the ones throughout the year that should move the needle on those lagging ones at the end of the year. And yes, there are certainly more measures than what's on this dashboard. In fact, if you'll refer back to the strategic plan document, you'll see that the second page for each goal lists a pretty comprehensive bulleted list of leading and lagging indicators for each goal. So for example, I'm looking right now at supportive environment. Throughout the year, we should be looking at those FAMD and FAMS scores, as we continue to implement MTSS. The iReady data, of course, is part of this. Attendance, our distribution, our tier distribution of MTSS, and also our engagement in our engagement tiers. So what is that population? What does that distribution look like across tiers? We can even look at social media engagement, professional development feedback data, technical support. How many calls are we getting into the help desk? That could signal how well the tools are being adopted and working for us. If we see a sudden influx of calls about a particular functionality of Canvas, then there's something we need to hone in on and refine there. So absolutely, there are many indicators that we can and should be tracking so that we can make course adjustments much sooner than the end of the year.
Thank you. I really appreciate that explanation because I was thinking about this from kind of our board perspective in terms of setting targets.
Mhm.
And I mentioned this a while back and I still have this concern. It's more just something to put out for us all to think about, which is this idea of causality. like with all these moving parts, how are we going to know that these targets were met because of this thing? So therefore we can replicate these as we move forward and then, next year increase the right targets. It's just something I think a lot about with so many kind of tests out there. And then we're waiting on lag indicators till the end of the year. It's like, what's working and
Mm.
what are the things that may not be necessary?
Yep.
Just an idea of like, how are we going to tie that causality? Like, this is the reason we're performing better.
Right.
I'm putting that out there, Dr. Arterhart McCoy as well, because I think that that'll be such an interesting idea for us to talk about in our annual meeting.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. I think that that's a great question to ask because often what happens in educational research is that um, we are working with evidence-based strategies, but it can be very difficult to pinpoint and say it is this exact strategy that's making these test scores go up. Sometimes it's a combination of not only having the right strategy, but having the right people who know how to implement the right strategy at the right time. And so it is something that I think we as a board could probably continue to tackle and think through in our working with our particular population of students and basing it on what we see their needs are and what we can tell from the past perhaps that might move the needle because Dr. Posner in coming up with those targets as the board is planning to do, will we have access to, I guess, previous year's data to be able to see some of the trends that we may have been tracking, maybe not using this particular method, but as we have been tracking with other methods over the years?
Absolutely. So you should have at your fingertips historical data, trend data, and any caveats to that. For example, if you look at course pass rates in our former asynchronous environment where students passed more because they completed steps in the course than demonstrated competency, then we're not comparing apples to apples when we look at our new course pass rates using Canvas and new curriculum. But I will add, it's important to remember we ran a pilot, and we've done a pretty good job of testing new systems on a smaller scale before we then launch them on bigger scales. We did this even with WebEx. We practice with the executive team before rolling it out for all staff and students. And so those smaller scale tests, from a research perspective, are able to show us causality and impact that then we hope and trust should scale up to a wider scale impact. And I really appreciate what you said, Dr. Martin McCoy, about the people side of it, because the truth is, in research, there are the 3 Ps to organizational performance, and it's people, processes, and platforms. So the platforms, those are the systems, the tools, and we talk a lot about that, but the truth is the other 2 dimensions are equally critical, right? The right people with the right training, with the right resources to execute effectively.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you very much, Dr. Posner. We really appreciate it. Are there any other questions in regards to the strategic plan? We look forward to having this broader discussion with the full board and also as we meet for our planning meeting within the next month or so, I guess it will be. All right.
Thank you.
I did have one quick thing on the supportive environment. I always want to make sure, and I do know that we note this, but I want to make sure that there are some continued, with the leading and lagging components, that we know how our staff is doing on all of this. I mean, I definitely want to know how our students are doing, but I also want to know how we're meeting the needs, and if we can compare to how we met needs previously on both sides of that, students and staff, always kind of having how we did before and how we're doing now as a comparison, because I think that we have such a history now of, 5 years, 6 years, however, I can't remember how long it is now, but, and we've continued to change and make progress, but I'd love to know that we're doing what we think we need to be doing always.
Oh,
you know,
that's a great
and-
point. Yes, and the good news is we have baseline data from this past year. We executed the perception survey, and that included, 360-degree view using student, family, and staff feedback around some common questions to gain those perceptions. As Ms. Bryan has pointed out, we have the working conditions survey. There's also exit interviews, employee evaluation data. So we do have multiple measures listed here where we can look at historical and then compare as we move forward.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. I think that we may be ready to move on to the next part of the agenda, and that is a discussion item about the parent engagement policy. Ms. Bryant is going to bring that to us. Ms. Bryant?
Good evening, everybody. I hope you are doing well. It's good to see everyone's faces. I am going to be just discussing our Title I Parent and Family Engagement Policy for this school year. As you know, that we are a Title I school, and so with being designated a Title I school, that we do have requirements, and one of them is to create a parent and family engagement policy that is posted on our website. And within this policy, it's been revised to reflect our current practices and the our vision of where we would like to go, aligning with our strategic plan. So I'm just going to share a few points on this document. If you have that in front of you, I believe that first paragraph is so striking, is that it's a shared responsibility of both school and family. And research will tell you that when you have family and the monitoring of parents, that child is more likely to be successful within that school setting, with the inclusion of having high quality instruction. And so it is shared, and we want to ensure that each student is provided with equitable opportunities to experience multiple levels of success to maximize their potential. So aligning that phrase right there is aligning with our strategic plan of that personalized, supportive environment. And so just going down again, this plant's emphasis on our parents and our learning coaches being just a vital, they are vital in building and maintaining the level of success and levels of progress that our students are able to make. And we want our parents to be involved with their child's education. And I think in this environment of virtual setting, especially with our younger students, where our parents are sitting beside their children for the majority of the time, to ensure that they are participating and filling in those gaps. And so with our family engagement, you'll see that we really want to provide the tools to build that capacity within our parents / learning coaches, so that they can provide that support where necessary for their student to demonstrate progress. And so, because we are a Title I school, we don't necessarily just say for our students who are of a certain socioeconomic demographic, we address our parent outreach to our entire school. And so emphasizing the communication is very important between school and home. This year, I believe it's been mentioned, we have put in place Kinvo, which allows for that increased communication and very instant communication between school and home. But it also, and communication is not just one way. It allows them to respond and ask questions. And so it goes out as a text, and then if the text is not available, it'll be an email. But it's that communication from the school, from individual teachers, that they can share, this is what's going on. They can share positive remarks, they can share upcoming meetings. It also provides parents with information on attendance. And so that communication piece is very vital and very central to how we want to operate as in a school. So the involvement of parents within this policy, this year we are attempting to have parent representatives throughout our state. And so DPI already has existing kind of perimeters for District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So aligning that, we put out a call for our parents to be parent representatives, a point person within these districts, and we're building that slowly but surely. And so the hopes is that we'll be able to have more social engagements, but also provide equitable learning experiences, experiential learning experiences for our students across the state. And what I mean by that is, you know, if we have the third grade wants to visit the aquarium by the coast, I'm a parent, I live in Charlotte or I live in Asheville. I can't necessarily take the time to drive my child there. So what are some equitable learning experiences that can be done with our children in our region? And so they're getting that same, maybe not the same, but some sort of equitable learning experiences. So this allows our parents to be able to plan around those field trips. We call them field trips, but they're experiential learning opportunities. So if I live in, and who knows the area better than the people that live there? So we have come together and shared common experiential learning places within the whole state. Once we get our data on the number of students that are in each district, we'll be sharing that as well. Meeting with our parents, again, to build that capacity for them to plan things and just supporting them so that it's social events, which is, again, an important component of our students' success and development in their schooling, but then also to provide those experiential learning experiences. So that is, so in building this, that their input was valuable in what they would like to see. But also when we did our parent, last year, Mr. Hill and I facilitated some parent focus groups, and we were able to gain some valuable information from them as well regarding the social aspect and the engagement of families. So this is how we also developed this policy. Dr. McCoy, Martin McCoy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. I know that there'll be time for questions, but I just wanted to just jump in here. When you're talking about those parent representatives that represent the State Board of Education regions, like you said, there are 8 that are across the state. I know that you described them as maybe having a role of, I guess, kind of being the people that help to gather ideas, or do they conduct these experiential kinds of travel experiences? I just wanted to get a better sense of their role, and also maybe get a sense of whether or not, because I know we've talked about having more parent representatives on the board. And we've also talked about how the board can have an advisory group of their own. So I just wanted to just kind of talk a little bit more about that and see where the thinking has been in terms of those things.
We want to build it in phases. So phase one is gaining interest and seeking to have representation of the different grade bands within each district. And then from there, creating community within that district. And so coordinating events where families can get together from that NCCA families can get together from that district. Again, creating that community. And then on top of that, creating learning experiences or even social experiences that are that pertain to different grade bands that are socially acceptable. So for instance, a high school student may not want to go see Charlie the Train, so what are some things from our high school that they could be planning social events, but it's in partnership with the school and with our teachers. So this year we did put out Mr. Mullins put out with a form for our teachers so we could find out where our teachers live and perhaps align them with some of our parents. So when we're meeting, they have that additional representative. In my last meeting with them this week, actually, with a group from the West side, we talked about just the different roles they could play. And like you stated, some additional roles such as being part of parent focus groups, being a part of school improvement teams. And so not just the planning, like we just want to be a party planner or event planner, but also expanding their roles. And so some of the parents, eventually we would like to set up meetings where, and this has been a request from the parents, as do you think we'll be able to, if there's some concerns perhaps that I'm hearing as a parent and several of us are hearing, or ideas, will we be able to present them to, your district leadership? And so I definitely think that's the way we would like to go, is having opportunities for them to meet with our principals or district leadership, just so that they can have an open forum to hear about changes, but to be able to voice, their or provide feedback rather. And so setting up some times for that would be great as well. I know that at the school level, which is so important, that family outreach, and they are working on increasing the frequency of parent outreach. For instance, I know high school has a goal of meeting frequently by grade levels and having those sessions with parents. Where middle school does a lot with their learning coaches. They meet monthly. And then elementary with curriculum nights to understand the different platforms that they're using and how to look at their student progress and data. And so the school level is so important with communicating and maintaining that bridge between school and parent. And so those are just, I hope that answered your question and provide a little bit more clarification on the roles of our parent reps that we are trying to get started this year. But then also not just for event planning, but how they can be involved with different facets of our school community.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and it sounds like you have some great plans for that. Ms. Hammergren.
Yes, along those lines, how are you coordinating like the framework of these different regions and the representatives, and so that we're not creating a bunch of silos, but that there's sort of a cohesive framework within, the interaction between the parents and the staff and the teachers and that kind of thing? Is it like a parent teacher association, or is it something that you're doing with different, committee groups? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how it's going to be sort of facilitated.
Right. So we discussed the difference between a PTA or PTSO, whatever it's called, with the national organizations. Um, I don't think in this first year we're ready to advance to something like that. So with this first year, it's really getting making those connections within each district. But then, so the goal is I've been meeting with individual districts to discuss different ideas they have, and sharing information based from the school. And then we would like to have general meetings for all of our representatives where we're sharing out our ideas and plans, so that brings it all together. The hope is that with the school teachers, that once we know where staff lives, inviting them to some of these meetings as well. Again, just to have and understand what's going on at the different grade levels, and how they can best support the learning that's taking place. So, but the growing phase right now is we put out the call this summer. We've had several meetings just to clarify what that role is. And then when parents have agreed they want to go ahead with this, meeting with them. And honestly, we changed it from 8 different districts to East Side, Central, and West Side. And so it just is, you have more individuals that can have that discussion versus 3 or 4. And so that's one step that we've taken to bring it all together. So our West Side met this week just to share some things. And we're going to work on how we get information out. Miss Yerke and I have been meeting just to discuss how we can, what's the word? Just increase that communication and how they can communicate back and how to keep parents informed of what's going on or upcoming events. And so it's still a work in progress, but those individuals were very insightful when this was created. I could send that out to them, and I was getting feedback like that. And so they've also expressed interest in sitting on school improvement teams or anything you need, we want to help or we want to know. So, that's just the attitude of they want to be involved. And so that's a good sign. So again, the hopes is to be able to use this base of parents to be point people for their district in coordinating events and planning experiential learning opportunities. And then as this grows, equipping them with the tools necessary for them to be able to answer questions for new families that come. And so, the dream is that if I'm a new family and I live in Durham, I would be able to see if I live in this area, this is my point person that I'm going to go to connect to this humongous school that spans across North Carolina and makes it more of a community for me. So that is the underlying goal for the parent reps. But in regards to the Title I policy, they provided that feedback that was necessary to create a policy that is relevant to what we are doing now and what we want to do.
Great. Thank you.
And so if you have any questions after you review it, please feel free to ask or provide any additional feedback you may have. I gladly accept that and thank you for it in advance. But I think in every organization, but especially a school, we want to build that bridge between school and home and that shared responsibility, knowing that it's all parties that take place that are needed for that child to have that opportunity to have more successful academic career. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Bryant about the parent engagement policy at this point?
I just ask quickly from the parent representative here, Dee, does this seem workable for you? Is it responsive for what you need as a parent?
Very much so. I think this is really, really exciting.
Mhm.
I think it's going to grow a lot in the future. And as more parent representatives can get other parent representatives on board, you know, they're the best advocates. And I love this parent engagement policy. I think it's actually, to me, and of course I'm biased, I think it's the linchpin for the success of the synchronous learning and that strategic direction. I mean, you know, we're the ones like, are you on it? Are you on your live lesson? Are you getting on it? Is it, what time is it? Is it at 10? Do you have your live lesson? You know, like we're the ones kind of sitting there, to your point, Miss Bryant, all day, like making the kids get on the thing, you know? So for attendance and so many of those lead indicators that we were looking at, I think getting the parents involved is so critical and getting them excited and bought in, which I see so much in the language, and what we're talking about here is really about exciting them about the opportunities and how well we're doing. So it's great.
Thank you for your comments. I always like to defer to our parents on some of these things because I don't want us to be talking in a vacuum, you know? So
Right. That's so very true, Ms. Hammergan. I think that I agree with Ms. Ray. I think that this is that linchpin there that's kind of helping to hold all this together. And it also reminds me of the previous conversation that we were having about metrics and how we could possibly look at the enhancements to this parent engagement policy and see the differences. I'm guessing the growth that we're going to see in having more students engaged, which could impact test scores and impact all of those other types of measurable indicators. So this is very exciting for so many reasons. And I really like the idea of bringing parents together from different parts of the state, because one thing that I've learned is that North Carolina is quite diverse. And when you go from the western to the central to the coast, you just get different perspectives. So it's just good to have that feedback from families. So it looks like we've come to the end of our agenda for this evening.
just one quick question.
Sure. I was going to
and I
ask,
asked-
was there anything else?
regarding that, and I go back to Dr. Posner, is there anything else that we should be adding into our strategic plan that captures some of this stuff with the parents in these new, groups that we're setting up in the different regions of the state? Is there something new and different, or is it already absolutely captured already in there with that?
A great question. And we did integrate facilitating greater parent engagement and involvement, but I'd actually love to specify some of this as part of our critical initiatives, particularly under student engagement. So I've already made notes to add that in. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Yes.
you.
And Ms. Hammergren, that made me think of another question for Dr. Posner. As we are moving forward and talking about these different pieces, because, for example, it could be very possible that once we go through our planning in our retreat and really start talking a lot about all of these different components of the strategic plan, will we be able to come back and give you that feedback, and will there be a time that might be incorporated and then we have the final version? Or what is the sort of like the timeline moving forward?
Yep. Great question too. So the timeline and process that I'm accustomed to following and that I would suggest is that we do have a final and formal adoption this month at our board meeting. However, That doesn't mean we cannot bring the plan back to the board for amendment. And that's very common. And we can decide, you can decide as a board, what should that update process and frequency look like? Could this plan be tweaked quarterly, maybe each semester? Certainly annually, a 3-year plan should be revisited and refined. And that's not to overhaul it. We need to keep some of these goals and targets steady and give us time to reach them. But as we have new critical initiatives to add or initiatives that get completed and can be checked off, certainly this plan can and should evolve and be responsive to changing needs.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. It's very helpful. Very helpful.
It's all very exciting.
It is.
And I echo a lot of what Dee was saying, just it's a lot of change, but it sounds so positive in the directions that we're going. And I'm, from a board standpoint and seeing where we have been from the beginning and now where we are going, I'm really excited to see how this is all moving forward.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, all right. If there are no additional items, may I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. This is Jill. So moved.
I second.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Dr. Martin McCoy,
Aye.
Ms. Hammergren,
Aye.
Ms. Ray.
Aye.
Right. Well, thank you very much to everyone. Appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.